Good.
Feeling all right?
Feeling all right.
All right.
You can excuse me if I yawn though.
That's the lack of rest.
Yeah.
The lack of sleep, bro.
Constant.
For all you boys and girls out there, get your sleep, man. Sleep. I think sleep's the most underrated thing, bro.
I know.
It is. It really is. Like sleep. And anybody would tell you, like a doctor or even a nutritionist or a or one of these fitness gurus will tell you, like, yo, sleep is literally, no pun intended, but sleep is slept on.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? Like we need sleep because
I'm tired of being awoke.
Your body needs like time to recover for you to be able to maximize the outward energy that you're putting on the gym, for example. Same thing with if you find yourself as an entrepreneur, you got to have some type of sleep. Whatever your sleep is, whatever charges your battery, do it. If it means you need a solid, because I've met this guy, he's like, yo, all I need is 5 hours of sleep.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
All I need is 5 hours of sleep, and I'm good money. I could go for 13 hours, and I'll make sales. I'll close.
Right.
This, and other people need 8 hours.
And sometimes you need a half-hour nap real quick.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need a half hour
to recharge. I'm big on naps, by the way.
Right.
ask my girl. My girl, I tell Jasmine all the time, and Jasmine be hating sometimes because she can't sneak naps like she used to now that she's she's been a mom forever. But like, it's hard when you're a mom. You know what I'm saying? Like,
when do you even have the time?
When do you have the time? And now that I'm kind of helping my brother parent his kids, he has a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old, and it's hard to sneak in a nap when they're at the crib running around trying to play Nintendo Switch
yeah,
and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, damn, dog, like I can't really sleep. This is like a full-time job. Parenting is I mean, I get like a taste of it. I don't know how it is to be a full-time parent. Like from the minute that they're awake, it's all hands on deck, especially when you're dealing with little ones. As they get older, because Connor's becoming a little bit more easier. You don't have to worry about him falling and bumping his head and doing dookie on his pants. But they get a bit easier, but then you have to deal with the intellectual stuff, like the conversations now that you're gonna have to have with them when they start getting older, 12, 13, start getting the teens, and you start having uncomfortable conversations about life and growth, pornography. and I didn't. Great segue. So you're learning how to pod, you ladies and gentlemen. Let's go. Oh, wrong button. Hey.
Where do you think I learned from?
that deserves a. But for those over at YouTube, we have no cameraman today, so we're gonna have to wing it and do multitask, if you will. But we're back. I'm here. If you recognize that sexy voice, that's good old Mike.
Oh, you're talking about me?
Mike Mills. For those who are listening on Spotify and Apple, but if you guys have the YouTube channel on lock and on notifications like you're supposed to, you can see us, and he's dripped out right now. Look at him with the bomber jacket, the olive green two-tone, black jeans. Like, my man's ready. He's ready for a photo shoot. But yeah, man, very honored and privileged to have Mike back once again. We're going to dive into what I've been teasing for the last couple of weeks, is talk about pornography and the battles of it, the addictions of it. A little bit of we're not going to really stay on the origins of it all for too long, but we're going to touch on that as well. We're obviously going to share personal experiences with pornography. I have a pretty interesting story that I haven't really shared with too many people, but I think that you're giving a story, and God puts you through things to probably use your story to empower, liberate, free people from bondage, from depression, from whatever it is that he's going to use your story for. So that's why I'm more inclined to sharing my story when it comes to pornography, because I was introduced to pornography at an age where I had no business being exposed to it.
Yeah.
I was very, very young. I was about, I want to say I was 11 in that 10, 11-year-old, phase of my life. And I didn't know what it was. And I was confused and baffled and bewildered and even scared. Like, yo, I'm watching people do naughty things. Because it's bad when you see people on screen fully nude doing things that you don't know is at the time. You don't even know what's going on, but it's intriguing to the eye, especially to an impressionable child who really doesn't obviously have experience with it, doesn't know what it entails, and doesn't even know where it comes from. You know what I'm saying? And why these people are doing those things in front of a screen, behind a camera, in front of a camera, I should say. So we're going to talk about that. But for you newcomers or guys that are new to the show, this is just a reminder. This is a weekly show. We do a weekly show, new episodes out every Wednesday on all digital platforms. So for those that didn't know, you can catch us on every digital platform. I do have an Instagram presence at kingdomtalks _pod. And I'll obviously leave the links on the description of this video if you guys are watching on YouTube. Mike's pretty active on social media, right? You're pretty active?
Yeah, I'm pretty active.
Yeah.
Should I get my Instagram out? I don't know if
Yeah, go ahead, because your link's probably going to be there.
Oh, okay. Cool. AKA _Mike Bryan _Esquire, ESQ.
Because he's an attorney, ladies and gentlemen. He's an attorney. Nothing better than a educated young black man. Love it. I love it.
Went through a lot of trials and tribulations and long journey to get there.
Yeah. Hey.
One of them being pornography at one point. Even just getting involved in relationships. So that's going to be amazing to talk about. But
yeah, I'm excited.
Thanks for having me, dog.
Yeah, I'm excited as always, man. It's cool to just share things on this platform with my friends. You know, a lot of the 99.9% of my guest co-hosts that sit on this couch are essentially people who I do life with, people who I have a kinship with, some type of friendship with. So I'm very honored and pleased to do these episodes. Episode 28, by the way, for those who are keeping count. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about the conversations that we have. So yeah, this is episode 28. And before we get started, I'm just going to go over a couple of, because last week we didn't get prayer requests. The week before we did. Last week, y'all were absentees. You didn't have prayer requests. But this week, I had 2 of them. So that's cool. The first one comes from a young lady. I want to say young lady, but a female. She says that she's struggling at work and she's just praying to land more clients. So yeah, that's important. I mean, you want to make ends meet. Rent out there is getting crazy. Mm-hmm. I was checking the real estate for people who are renting, and you're literally paying like $2,000 for a 2-bedroom studio or condo. It's getting crazy, guys. Yeah, it's getting crazy. So yeah, definitely praying for that, especially if you're in South Florida and the rent is just going. I don't know how it is up north, but up north is probably worse. So yeah, definitely praying for that. And then another one from a young man saying that he recently is recovering from his addiction. He wants to take his sobriety more serious because he's tired of relapsing. So you're pretty familiar with that. I've been around friends and family members that's dealt with some type of addiction, whether it's a substance addiction, alcohol addiction. It's tough, man. I've had ex-coworkers of mine throughout the years that died from an opioid overdose because they were addicted to opioids. So it's tough, man. It's a tough situation to be in, especially for those who consider them close and near and dear to their hearts, family members. Families are destroyed because of it. It's a tough situation, especially when there's a loss because of it. It just sucks, man. It sucks to see that. I've watched, matter of fact, I watched, oh man, it's escaping me right now, a documentary on the opioid epidemic in what state is it? In somewhere up north,
Vermont,
Connecticut, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. One of those northeastern states,
Pennsylvania's huge opioid epidemic there, struggling with it. I think the arrest, because they're going over arrests related to drug overdoses. It's like at an all-time high, some crazy stat, and I'm just like, that's just in one part of the region of this country. I could just imagine the United States as a whole dealing with that. And I mean, that's another conversation for another time, but you get so caught up in watching all these different documentaries on Netflix right now. It's crazy. Whether it's like shows on Netflix or docuseries, because docuseries is becoming a thing now, like the 8-part docuseries now. I watched me and my brother are watching Cocaine Cowboys.
Oh no, I never heard
on Netflix. It's basically the drug smugglers and drug cartel guys that set up shop in the 70s in Miami and got the plug. I guess they made business. They were conducting business with a lot of key members of what is considered now the Medellin cartel. But this was like in the early 70s, before even Pablo Escobar was a thing. So it's a story about these individuals who were just running rampant out here in Miami in the disco era.
All built up and everything.
Yeah, they were bringing in tons and tons of cocaine, and that story's incredible. I mean, I highly recommend it. I mean, I'm not going to sit on the show and talk about that, but yeah, man, it's just crazy how we just kind of keep ourselves busy with our screens. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because we're constantly in front of screens. We're constantly dealing with some type of ad, some type of any kind of advertisements, like literally just
some kind of search engine or something.
Yeah, like always just plastered and always in our faces. And because sex sells, and we're just going to call it what it is, a lot of these companies use scantily dressed women to sell a product, whether it be a girl in a bikini with a cell phone. Like, why are you trying to sell me a phone using this girl in a bikini top and boy shorts? Like, I don't get it. So that's what we're going to talk about. I guess you can go first. You're a guest here.
Sure.
Like, just your how you were introduced to porn, and then we'll kind of segue into the origins of porn and stuff like that. So how did you get introduced to porn? How old were you and all that good stuff?
Well, I guess I'll go with still porn.
And you can bring
first,
the mic a little closer to you.
Yeah, I'll go with still porn first, which is
magazines and all that.
Playboy magazines, right?
Yeah.
That was the first time I'd really seen anything like that, because even before that was like the Spice Channel. You remember up north?
Oh my gosh,
and
I forgot about that. And it was blurry,
but then like at that time there was only 99 cable channels, so you would just be going up through the channels and finding stumbled across. I got curious then. Then I remember my boy had a Playboy magazine that he got from his dad, and we all looked at it. I never forget. I'm not gonna say his name, because anyone who knows the story, the three of us, that dad beat his ass after he got, because he had a whole box of them.
Yeah.
So that was interesting too, because I think it was, at least in its pure, like just being genuine and honest, I don't really think I still had any crazy desires at that time. I was curious, I appreciated it, right? But the videos, once it went from just the female body to the actual, sex, that's when I could tell that there was a huge change. That's when there was a huge change, right? I was like trying to look for stuff and find stuff, and just, and it became, so that's, I think my trend, and that was right around when the internet was starting to become more popular. I was probably a freshman or a sophomore in high school when I started having discs and VHSs, like a stash of them.
Mm.
And being completely honest, I mean, I don't think, I'll speak just for myself, I don't believe that my sexual experience matched the level of sexual intake and information I was even getting. There was things that I was seeing and I was like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
hadn't, so it was just definitely interesting. And even still, even losing my virginity at an early age didn't really help because I still didn't really know. But there was just so much stimulus that was coming in from, so much information that was coming in from these things. And before long, you start to, kind of lose sight of what you're actually doing. I think that's the biggest issue, was that I was young, right? You don't know what it is you're ingesting or taking in. You don't even understand what it's doing. If you look at any other, even though it's a visual, right? If you look at alcohol, any type of drugs, they say how it physiologically will change your brain chemistry if taken too young. And there's no difference between something like that. You're 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, seeing that type of sexual, sexually driven, movies and stuff like that at that age. You don't know how it's your brain chemistry is just actually being changed.
Yeah,
So.
it's pretty crazy with me, and it's funny how you mentioned that, because I touched on it earlier. I had no business watching what I was watching through a VHS that someone popped in the VCR. And for those who don't know what a VCR is, because you guys suck and make me feel old, go ahead and Google that, boys and girls, what a VCR is.
Wow, I forgot that we even have to break that down.
I know, like
really?
we're living in a. I'm not even going to get into that because I'll get frustrated. But yeah, it's like and I'm struggling with this mic today. What am I, a rookie? I've been doing this for too long now to be struggling with this. Anyway, so where was I? See, now I lost my train of thought. What was I? Oh yeah, so I had no business watching this VHS. The person that was introducing this to me thought it was cute and funny to see how I was going to react, and he was definitely, my cousin was a little older than me, so he thought it would be hilarious. But ignorance, he was, he didn't know what damage he was doing to me, because he was also young and ignorant, and he didn't really understand the trauma and even, dare I say, the consequences that come with exposing a young child to those type of things. So
and that's just being a boy, right?
And that's just
being a boy.
Yeah, just doing boy stuff. And so I was confused, and I was just kind of like, it was like a shock. I was just like, whoa, like what is this? And why am I seeing a guy's penis on screen? You know what I'm saying? Like, it was crazy. It just jacked me up. And mind you, I was like, I can't remember exactly how old I was, but I was definitely not a teenager. I was somewhere in that 10, 11, maybe 12 year range. And I'm just like, I'm bugged out. You feel me? Like, I'm just going like, I'm looking over my shoulder, like, because you feel inside like this is something you're not supposed to be doing. So you're looking over the shoulder, making sure no adults are going to come through the room. I'm looking around to look at my cousin laughing at me, kind of kikiing and stuff. Right. And I'm just like, what's going on? And you're checking if the door's closed. Like, because you naturally know that you're not supposed to be watching this. And so that's how I was introduced to it. And I didn't know then, but as I started seeing my therapist and just started doing my own reflection as an adult now, and just kind of figuring out the origin or the root of the things that I went through as a young adolescent to adulthood, in that area of my life, the sexual area of my life, it all goes back to that day. It all goes back to that day. I was exposed to it too young. It put me in a place where I was confused, traumatized, scared, and all these things. And I'm just like, I can't do this. This is not right. I don't think this is right. So then there was a gap between 11 and right when I was in middle school. So I must have been like 13 because now you're a little teeny bopper.
Mm-hmm.
And the internet, like you said earlier, the internet came through,
Mm-hmm.
and now these things are downloadable, and DVDs are a thing now.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're borrowing DVDs from your boy in school that he stole it from his uncle's closet, or his big brother. He's like, he stole it from his big brother. He's like, yo, look what I got. You should check this out, kind of thing.
Crazy, dog.
And that's where the consumption started increasing in my life, and then it just kind of spiraled into my late teens. And by the time I was a senior in high school, it was a normalized thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching it constantly. I would sneak it. I would try to sleep over my boy's house and watch it at my boy's house because I was afraid to get caught in my house because my parents were mad strict with the TV in general. So it was crazy. And then while I was in college, the short-lived stint of college, because I ended up dropping out, I was watching a lot of it in college. And when I was in relationships with girls, I would watch it with them. And for some of the girls it was foreign, that kind of behavior was foreign to, I would manipulate them to kind of finesse them to, essentially, convincing them like, yo, this would be dope if we watch porn while we have sex. You know what I'm saying? And that became a thing for me. And I was just wilding out, as a young adolescent. And I was and I just didn't know the effects of what it was. Because honestly, to me, now looking back, I was literally feeding a monster. Mm-hmm. And that monster kept growing with the more consumption of porn that I was doing, because now I started graduating from different genres of porn. Mm-hmm. I would get like into these fetish films. And
I don't mean to laugh. I love the
we laugh because it's mad. It's real.
And it's identifiable. I guarantee you. Someone listening is...
It's relatable
as well too.
It's relatable.
Damn, we got the fetishes too.
Yeah, the fetishes, the Asians. I got into Asians in a little bit. Then I started getting into the interracial stuff, and then I started getting into the
aggressive stuff. I'm not even aggressive by nature.
Right. So
I'm not.
And so I started researching and doing the studies of porn consumption. Mm-hmm. And this doctor had said that the reason why we graduate to these different genres of porn, and it becomes more extreme as you graduate to other genres of porn. Mm-hmm. The reason why you graduate to more extreme versions of pornography is because you're literally desensitizing yourself.
Exactly.
And you're hyper-sexualizing everything now. Mm-hmm. So you wonder why 40 and 50-year-olds today struggle with erectile what is it called? Erectile dysfunction mm-hmm. is because what they saw mm-hmm. is not reality.
Exactly.
So when reality is not met, they're having relations with their wife mm-hmm. and they can't finish, mm-hmm. but then they'll sit behind a laptop and they'll finish in 3.5 minutes. Mm-hmm. The reason why is because you're so hypersensitive to certain things, and everything's so hypersexualized, mm-hmm. and you're literally, like I said 10 seconds ago, you're desensitizing yourself.
And sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead.
The interesting thing, like piggybacking on top of that, right? Mm-hmm. I learned that later on too, just late, right? Mm-hmm. But then I also figured out that that's not only. It wasn't necessarily some big grand conspiracy, but that was also the intent, though, because the way the film sets are designed, the use of the oil, they chop and they segment parts of the clips and they make them more attractive. It's designed to represent things that are unattainable. A lot of the angles that you're watching, that you're desiring, you cannot replicate that angle, right? Yeah. So aesthetically, if you're watching a certain position, right, you can't watch from that third party vantage point unless you do engage in a threesome.
Right.
Right. So then you're always chasing after these angles and the lighting and all, and for her to look like the one you saw,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then you know what I mean, and then it ends up chasing. It's set up like
Yeah.
a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean. So sometimes, and once again, the goal isn't necessarily to get everybody, but they know eventually they're gonna get somebody.
They gotta get somebody.
They're gonna get some people.
And they know, and also research has proven that the male brain and how we're wired, we're visual creatures more so than women. When women are more submissive, we're more of the visual creature that wants to pounce on the female, right? If we're talking in those terms, and because men are more visual creatures, when they're consuming pornography, they're the ones that are going to struggle the most. They're the ones that are going to be more neurologically affected than the women. Not to say that women are exempt from possibly having a porn addiction or a porn problem, because women I've known women that have similar situations where I remember, and I'm gonna kind of sidebar real quick, but we'll jump on the origins in a second. But before I forget, so I'm gonna say it now. Years ago, I went on this recovery group. Years ago, like when I was trying to get my addiction in order and trying to combat it, when I was trying to be the man of God that I felt I was called to be, and when I was taking my faith more serious, and I wasn't living out in the world, and when I was taking my faith more serious and practicing my faith and having more of a relationship with God and all that other good stuff, I made it in an effort to go to these recovery groups, and I found, and they're not very easy to find, like just specifically for. Because the drug abuse ones, you could just go to AA meetings, but for codependency and pornography, they're not too many. They're few in between, and so I found one, and it was actually faith based, because I think it was through a church. I forget, it was so long ago, and I went on this recovery group with people who are trying to kick this porn habit, and it was only like 4 of us. It was a very small group, because it's tough. It's tough to come forward and admit that they have a porn issue, problem, whatever you want to call it.
A lot of people don't even see porn as a problem.
Exactly. So it was only like 3 or 4 of us. On a good week, there was probably 5 of us. And this one girl, bro, she kind of, after a couple of weeks, opened up. And when she opened up, she went in, bro. And one thing that I did remember, because she got real and raw real quick. She said that her relationship, her marriage essentially, ended because of the effects that she had with pornography, because porn turned her into a very ashamed person. Like she was ashamed of her body because she saw these porn stars look a certain way. Then she was desensitized by the guys that she would be exposed to in porn. Like the size of these guys are not average. So for you young girls out there, if you're struggling with pornography and you're seeing these guys hanging like that, that's not the average male.
Average Joe.
That's not the average Joe that you're gonna walk into and meet at wherever you're gonna meet them, whether it be at a junction somewhere or at a park, wherever you're gonna meet them. The average person is not hung like that. So that's also a visual thing that girls got exposed to. And so when you're setting the bar that high, like, oh, I got to be with a guy that's a good-looking guy with washboard abs and that's hung like that, because that's the only guy that's going to be able to please me in bed, you're setting yourself up for failure right there and there when you're meeting the average person. And so when she married, when she was well into her marriage, she was well into her porn addiction. And what happened was she was unable to climax.
Oh, wow.
She couldn't climax. And as much as role playing that she did, and as much as she shared a lot. So I'm telling you what she told the group, right? And she was telling us that her spouse, and rightfully so, bro, because I think I would have felt the same way. He felt like he wasn't doing it right, that he felt that she didn't love him, that she wasn't appreciative of him physically, and that the love was lost and there was no lovemaking anymore. Sex became a chore, and because she struggled with that and she didn't know how to navigate through it by having healthy dialogue with her partner at the time, it turned into a toxic relationship, and then essentially he was filing for a divorce. He didn't want to be with her anymore. Because her experience with the porn and trying to navigate through that and trying to understand herself and her body, because of it, she just didn't know how to navigate through it. So it landed her loss, and her divorce landed her in a recovery group. It wasn't the other way around. It wasn't, oh, I have a problem, before it becomes a bigger problem in my marriage, I got to go to recovery and figure out what I can do and how I can be better. It just happens to be that was the catalyst to land her in a recovery group, and porn literally destroyed her marriage, and she found herself as a divorced person trying to figure out what she's doing wrong and find herself. Her self-esteem was obviously low. She was comparing herself with the porn, quote unquote, porn stars that she would see on screen. Oh, I don't look like that. Right. My booty don't look like that. My body's not framed like that. I can't do those things. I can't hang from the ceiling and perform these sexual acts. It was crazy for her. And just as it was crazy for her, it's crazy for the next person. And for me, it was, the more I consumed, the more I set these like expectations as to how it was going to look like when I was going to be in bed with my partner. And like you said, I never replicated a scene from a movie, from an X-rated movie that I saw.
That you could be able to physically see yourself from that angle, because it's actually impossible. You would have to record yourself and then watch it back. That would be the way you'd have to do it, I think it's funny, Javi, too, that it seems like, what people don't understand, this is, okay, so remember I told you I'd written a paper about this stuff back in the day? One of the things I'd also written a paper about this similar, but had to do with venom, right? And I was using venom to relate that symbiotic relationship on how, for example, porn or drugs could affect somebody, right? So, for example, porn necessarily isn't bad on its face, right? But if you're not, I'll use myself, I don't want to point fingers at other people, but if I'm not consciously aware of my shortcomings, my strengths, my weaknesses, and I'm self-aware, that means anything I encounter could have a negative impact, right? So, for example, I had a friend, female friend, who was watching porn a lot, right? She also had social anxiety, right? That didn't allow her to really date the way she wanted to, right? She was trying, sweet girl, it was just about the meeting of new men and the whole dating process, right? And what happened was, the more she just used the porn as a vice, it went 3 years where she just wouldn't go meet any men. Now, once again, being single for 3 years is not a problem. None of that, that's not actually the issue. The issue that she was recognizing herself and was talking to me about was that the problem was becoming worse, and it had nothing to do with social anxiety. It was porn. She was watching porn. She thought she was taking care of herself, being safe in the comfort of her home. I'm doing this. But then the more she did that, the less social interaction, the less practice she was getting of even speaking and sitting across from a man, because she felt like she didn't need it. And it got to the point where she didn't meet anybody, and she was just heartbroken. And I don't know how I'm ever going to speak to anybody, because I'm now I'm in the throes of this thing. So the point of all that was to say, it's not necessarily that porn is an evil thing, but everyone has these things that, once again, if you put porn in front of a room, porn of 10 different people, there may be 10 different reactions.
Absolutely.
Some ways that some person's gonna see this and wanna, maybe go rape somebody, and then another person's gonna see it, and then they're gonna, the effects could be so various, all from the same. And then there's gonna be two people that leave and never watch porn again. Right. But just the self-awareness and acknowledgement of like, hey, am I doing this?
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? What are the reasons I'm actually doing this? You know what I mean? It's a tough thing, because even being present in the moment, I found for me was like, I'm an escapist. That was my issue, right? It wasn't so much the porn, it wasn't so much, the drinking. It was escapism. You know what I mean?
Which is a real thing.
So you get to go into that world for a little bit, but then that world goes away, and it's like, okay, you're back to normal, right? You never can't stay in that world forever. So yeah, that was my thing. I found is like, and that's how I recognize how unrealistic it is, because I had to literally deprogram myself from, hey, do you understand how even just from the certain colors they put in the background of certain videos, you know what I mean? This is what threw me off. I remember seeing anytime that the girls are borderline 18, they use bright colors in the back of the room. That's weird. That is a weird thing that you wouldn't necessarily associate, but why? You already have a girl that looks semi-underage, who's probably of legal age, right? That she's of legal age, but they make her look underage, and then they put teddy bears and
bright
pink
colors
and yellows and you know what I mean? But
unicorns.
Then somebody not someone who's not paying attention is like, oh, porn is porn. It's not a big deal. And you know what I mean? And that is a big deal, you know?
For sure. So we're going to backtrack a little bit, because we were going to touch on the origins of porn, because I did a little bit of research, and we talked about it briefly behind the scenes over what we call a phone conference when we talk about podcasting. But really, it was just a conversation amongst men who want to talk about the topic. And like pornography, in its core, when it was conceived in American culture, I guess, back in the I want to say 60s and 70s, it was becoming like this subcultural thing, and these Hollywood hacks that couldn't make it in Hollywood, they started doing these pornographic films, is what they called it back then. It was taboo. They were literally members of a secret society, and they didn't have a market, I guess. They did have a market. Obviously, they had a market because they were selling and making money, but they didn't have a mainstream market as they did when we were growing up in the late 90s to early 2000s, right? When porn transitioned into the mainstream. But the origins of it was basically sex workers working behind a camera. You know what I'm saying? And it was just what it was. Like it was taboo. People correlated porn stars to drug addicts and people who had diseases and things like that. That didn't change, but the acceptance of that culture did change. But in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, especially after the AIDS epidemic started blowing up in the late 80s, that was a concern for the American culture. Like, why is this even out there for the youth to watch? Why is it what's the word that is escaping me right now? But you know what I mean. Like, why is it that it's something that should be accepted because it's part of a subculture here in America or globally, really, and it's art. People justify it with it's the way I express myself and how I artistically express myself through, especially filmmakers will use this terminology all the time. If they're filmmakers of the genre, it's just art. It's the beauty and the essence of the woman and man meeting and doing what your mom and dad did behind closed doors, but now everybody could. So they kind of like they mask it and they kind of like sensationalize it, right?
Because it wasn't intended to be bad at first, right? It definitely wasn't intended to be. And I think the irony of it is that probably the most wholesome porn we ever had was at its inception, because they were just it was just intimate, usually between one person. They still had, it was very raw and sensual, right? But just by the very nature of letting people view the intimacy, it almost takes away intimacy. You know,
yes.
Just that, even though it's not necessarily, even if you could watch two people just, having a moment, just by the very nature, even though they obviously don't mind it, they're consenting that people are watching, you're almost taking away from intimacy by that way, because it's supposed to be a moment shared between two people.
Right.
Two people.
So it's essentially unnatural. Right. So their performance is an unnatural performance that makes you think that that's what's supposed to happen in your bedroom. And that's why people who consume so much porn have bad relationships, and they don't have they're not in thriving relationships, because expectations are never met.
Right. And don't get me wrong, man, because I understand that everyone has different preferences and proclivities and all that stuff, right? Now, once again, being present is different. If you're somebody, I mean, you may differ on this. I know you're strong in your faith and stuff, but if you're somebody that believes, for example, that you could be in a polyamorous relationship, right? And you genuinely believe that, and you're with other consenting people, to me, that's even healthier than watching a bunch of people who are having sex in a polyamorous relationship, because there's something to be said for the energy and the lack of, or not, I shouldn't say the lack of, but the downloading of information subconsciously into your brain, right? I feel like it is a different thing when you are, acting in, to yourself morally and ethical desires that I think, that you're being present in the moment and you're dealing with these things, versus glorifying it and watching it happen behind the screen. It just, they've bastardized, the intimacy of it a little bit.
Yeah, that's a fact, because I was actually doing some reading on it and research on it. Pre-internet, the average male was probably exposed to the opposite sex or to a human body in that intimate level when you're with one another, either behind a screen or even in personal experiences, a couple hundred times, right, in their lifespan, right? When they looked at it as far as the average male watching it on TV, it was still a couple hundred times in their lifespan. Pre-internet, pre-technology,
yes.
pre-everything. Now, the average male watches and sees and is exposed to sex or some type of sexual content 4,000 times that. They could literally watch 2,000 scenes. I forget if it was a year or in their life. No, it couldn't be their lifespan, but I think in a matter of, for argument's sake, in a matter of a year, they could watch and be exposed to thousands of different women,
of course,
behind a screen in this era, versus where our grandparents were alive. And I'm just like looking at that, like, yo, that has to speak volumes.
It
like
does.
That has to mean something. That has to mean something in our society. Like, no wonder, we see the debauchery that we see in these reality shows on MTV, BET, CW. I mean, the list goes on Netflix, and all these different couple shows and promiscuous couple shows on Netflix. I mean, I could go on and on. And you wonder why the society is being molded and shaped the way it is. And it's because of the porn industry bleeding into mainstream culture, American culture, and essentially globally. And that has to mean something. So when I started looking into that, I'm like, wow, how does that affect the person up here between the ears, right? Because that was something that I didn't understand. I was very ignorant. I thought, man, it's just porn.
It's just porn. I mean,
Yeah, it's just porn.
Especially as a guy, you're not supposed to think anything
what
but
damage am I doing? It's just me and the porn that I'm watching.
Right.
Like how is it damaging to anybody else? Like how is it messing with me mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually? I didn't know back then. I started knowing once I started getting more centered into my spiritual ground and being centered into Christ. I started seeing, wow, this stuff can be a spiritual warfare that I'm cooking up because I'm not supposed to be doing this as a man of God, right? But prior to that, I'm like, how is this messing me up physically or mentally? And I didn't start doing research till after I was sick and tired of being sick and tired of dealing with pornography. I started doing research, and I started seeing studies were showing pictures of the brain. And they showed this is the brain. This is what the brain looks like for a person that abused methamphetamines. And then this is a picture of a brain that abused and was known to be in a sexual abusive relationship, and also abused more so everything that foreshadowed that was porn consumption. That this person's brain, this is what it looks like because they consumed and abused pornography. And it wasn't similar. You guys can even Google it. It didn't look identical, but man, there was portions of the brain that looked very similar, like the holes that it created, the gaps that it created, the stresses that they created it. Because when you are releasing yourself from watching these pornography pornographic content, I should say, you're synthetically releasing dopamines and adrenaline even when it's supposed to be released through the physical touch of another human being. When you're,
actually more powerful,
right? So what happens is you become a compulsive abuser of pornography, and being that it's a compulsive thing, it's deemed to be an addiction. Like textbook, that's addiction.
It's no different than someone who eats a lot of snacks,
right,
and can't control themselves on how many snacks they eat.
Or one who's addicted to nicotine.
Right.
Same thing. And so when I started looking at it that way, it was allowing me to get in front of my addiction, get in front of the porn problem that I had. And of course, through prayer and men's groups that I started doing at the church that I was at the time, helped me tremendously. I was able to kick the porn habit and be delivered from it, praise God. And but it was never, it never is. Whenever you try to kick an addiction, it never is a graceful, pretty thing that happens. You go through these ups and downs, and you go through these growing pains of trying to do right, trying to live a better life, and trying to with any addiction, because when people try to kick an addiction, it's because they're trying to live a better life, a better quality life. And I wanted to live a better quality social life because it was affecting my social interactions with women. Because again, because of the mind, you start seeing women as potential,
right,
prey, if you will, and you start seeing these things, and because of these dopamines and different chemicals that are released from your brain, you start experiencing the effects of it. It's known, and studies have showed, and again, guys, we're not blowing air here. You guys can literally Google check us. You can Google all this. It's known to create anxiety, depression, and even social anxieties
and social disconnect,
and social disconnect, and because you're disconnecting yourself from reality and what sex should be and is intended to be. So when I started literally doing a deep dive as to what it does to the male and female brain, it was alarming.
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely alarming thing. And I know that you said that you'd done a paper on
Yeah, I did.
on pornography. If you wanted to share a little bit of that.
Yeah, some of the things. I mean, in order to do it, I like anytime I did anything, I really had to research. It was actually for somebody else, but
Yeah.
that's neither here nor there. But so I had to the person. Well, that's actually relevant because the person gave me this topic. They already had chosen it, and I'm like, all right, pornography. Like, what am I even going to talk about? Mind you, I didn't really think there was a problem at this point. This is like 2012.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really thinking there's a huge problem. So I'm researching and doing all this. One of the interesting, there was a news article with an interview with one woman. She was like 50 something years old, right? So at this point, we're talking, she was doing it in like the 70s, maybe 80s, 90s, right? So she was explaining that there were times where she got forced into doing certain things contractually, right? Because she didn't have like the contractual knowledge that, hey, I can't orally agree to this, this arrangement. She was agreeing to things with directors or producers, and she would get there and then she'd sign a contract and they would, tell her, hey, well, listen, you're about to do this scene with XYZ. And she was like, whoa, I don't do that. And they're like, hey, well, $250,000 in breach of contract. You can't afford that. You might as well go through the scene. Now, this was pretty disturbing to me. So now, she disclosed this and was explaining. So there were times where we're watching, pornographic content where this girl actually hadn't even really consented. She's just one woman showed up to a set. There's 9 men. Mm-hmm. She already signed the contract. There was no way for her to really get out of it. Mm-hmm. She didn't bring a friend. Yeah. And it's 9 men, including the set directors or whoever else. And
so technically you could be watching someone getting raped.
You know what I mean? And then the tears coming down her face, are partially real. And then that really disturbed me because once again, I'm not the perfect person, but like, that's not my thing. You know what I mean? So to find out that you could be watching
because you have a moral compass too. Mm-hmm. It's not like we're monsters because we used to watch porn. I mean, we had some type of moral compass.
Exactly.
I think I like to. Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but I definitely do. Mm-hmm. And so it's disturbing to even know that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and then even there were so many disturbing facts. I wish I remembered the whole. But there was just so many disturbing facts, like even later on. So they were talking, and I was talking about it in the paper. Later on, when webcams started becoming popular and you could film more amateur stuff, right? Amateur porn is a nice genre. Not a nice genre. I mean,
more intimate genre.
More new genre that people are liking. Yeah. A popular genre, right? Not nice.
Because it's more one-on-one.
One-on-one.
You could feel that you're more intimate with that person as a viewer.
They're not a star. Yeah. But then we're finding out that a lot of these amateur porn, the rooms, if you look at them very carefully, they're like almost hostel rooms. Yeah. They're not actually porn sites. You know what I mean? They're hostel rooms, and there are people in there that you are doing whatever you are to, and these people don't leave. And that's what they're meant to do on camera. And you have no idea. Some of them are probably drugged up. How much are you even paying attention to that? Yeah. So to read that too, I'm thinking to myself, it just triggered like a wave of just like all like guilt and shame of like, because I have a sister, I have a mother, I have nieces and stuff like that. I have no nieces. But I have just a lot of females in my life, and just to see that that's potential, it changed the whole dynamic for me. It really changed the whole dynamic for me. Yeah. Another fact was at that time, this was 2012, so this could be different. 2012, 2013. Yeah. One of the top genres looked at, where 40 million men were looking at, right, was underage women. Women who either looked underage or they just paraded it to like, some sites that are like, heavily monitored, they have to be 18. But there's third-party sites that aren't heavily monitored and they're actually underage girls. Yeah. And, some people obviously are going there purposely, but then there's other people who may just like slender, more, petite women, but they don't even know that they could be watching something wrong. I would hope that, that people would recognize, but I started to realize that it just didn't look right. There were some scenes, like anytime I see a girl in pigtails and like all that, I'm like, that's already weird. I don't care if she's 19 or 20. Right. You're clearly trying to attract a certain type of demographic, right? So those were some of the details. There's plenty more, but the details, like reading, I'd never read research on porn until that time before. Right. Never. Everything I thought about porn was between conversations with me. Yeah.
And what was like the thesis concept of it? Like what did you need to do for this paper as far as porn?
So I had to explain, like, it was basically a persuasive paper and trying to figure out, so the topic was general pornography, so we could pick. So I pulled out the information first, and then my thesis became the detrimental effects on porn. And society. And I went into all that because all I did was gather the information. I wasn't even against it at first. Yeah. And then after I sorted through the information, it started to become apparent. I was like, first, like I said, I felt guilt and shame. No one was even there with me. It's just me and the computer. I'm like, damn, this shit is fucked up, bro. Yeah. This is really pretty bad. Yeah. And then I wrote the paper, just tried to live like, nice it up and make it a little less vulgar and stuff, but highlight those areas in which it was, detrimental. Like how you said, it changes the brain. People don't even realize that, yes, if you're watching maybe once in a while, and I'm not a doctor, I don't know, but watching once in a while, it may not change your brain chemistry. The right person watches it once in a while and it could flip their switch. Yeah. Who knows if it's the 100th time or the 150th time or the first time? Yeah. But you don't really know because we're not doctors, we're not medical professionals. But it does change people's brain chemistries.
It does. It does. And talking about the brain chemistries, it does do a lot of damage socially for young adults today. It's funny how you mentioned the webcam. I think the webcam era, whenever that became a thing, in the mid 2000s, I want to say.
With the cheap ones.
So I think that was more that era conceived the era that's now the OnlyFans era. Mm-hmm. OnlyFans now, bro, it's literally friendly porn. Mm-hmm. It's very accessible. It's driven by a social media presence that this influencer may have. Mm-hmm. And so it's accessible for everyone because everyone is on Instagram. Right. Everyone is on Facebook. Everyone seems to be on TikTok now. Mm-hmm. And so when you're scrolling on your For You page and it picks up on certain algorithms, you're going to see a guy in what we call a banana hammock and showing his stuff. It's going to persuade a girl to watch that guy do his thing because there's male content creators who have these OnlyFans pages. So there's a lot that I didn't know about OnlyFans until I started doing my research. And I thought OnlyFans were female content creators, but there's a lot of male content creators that cater to both hetero and homosexual audiences. Right. And
because you know why?
Why?
You said it before too. Who is the most affected by the porn industry negatively? You said young men. Young men. Guess who are the biggest financiers of that? Men spend more on other men on OnlyFans than women, and men spend more on women, obviously, as well. They are alone. Men are the sole reason why that exists. Whether you're heterosexual or homosexual, they're spending money by the thousands to see sexual content.
You just literally took the words right out of my mouth, bro. It's and we giggle because it's so true. It is. And sometimes like the wholesome part of me and the Jesus part of me wishes that it was not true, but unfortunately, men are the driven force.
Some women may. But they're not.
But overwhelmingly, and for those who are hearing this, there's ambulances and fire trucks going by. So
the podcast is on fire right now. Hey.
But yeah. So this OnlyFans era that we're in, if you guys thought that pornography is super accessible, that anybody can just stumble onto a porn site, stumble into a porn account on social media because of this right here, guys. And for those who are listening in Spotify, I'm waving a cell phone in front of a camera. It's because it is that easy. It's literally at a touch of a screen. And when it comes to OnlyFans, OnlyFans is like a friendly neighborhood person.
Yeah.
Hey, this is me. I'm a content creator and I want to express myself sexually because it's a free country and blah 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 blah. And they'll get into this whole I'm doing it for the art, and I'm a body positive female that's out there to be a voice for the voiceless, and this and that and a third. But meanwhile, you're doing these heinous things that a young teenage girl shouldn't be watching, or a young teenage boy shouldn't be watching. But they normalized it. I truly believe that OnlyFans and social media has definitely normalized pornography, again because of because it early on in the late 90s, early 2000s, the porn industry kind of bled into mainstream when we started seeing notable porn stars on Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg videos, Marilyn Manson videos, Blink 182 videos, and the Eminem video that made that one porn star viral. She was in a Eminem rap video, and it just bled into mainstream. It started becoming more of a pop cultural accepted thing, and that was bad news for those that wanted to live a wholesome, pure Christian life. And so that's an uphill battle. And when we start reading these news articles about human trafficking and these third-party agencies and companies that literally finance these sex trafficking groups out in the Middle East and Eastern Europe and South America and in the Caribbean, it's scary. And it's like, wow, how much of like the I mean, I'm not gonna blame my consumption of porn, and I do feel guilty in a sense. Like, wow, did I aid a young female get trafficked because of my consumption of pornography? Because the views aid the website. The more, even though it's free, I never paid for porn. I never gave my credit card information for pornography on the internet. But but I did go on a porn site. They did count my view as $1 in some way. I don't know how they do it algorithmically or logistically, but I know that my views somehow, some way, put $1 or a cent in that machine, right?
For sure.
So it was definitely convicting, and I'm like, wow, sex trafficking is a real thing, and Pornhub's behind it. I don't know if you guys remember, not too long ago, like pre-COVID, I want to say, Pornhub was in the headlines. They some whistleblower started spilling the beans, if you will, about certain financial gains that knew people in that sex trafficking world, and they were being financed by those companies and sister companies that Pornhub financed. And I'm just like, how is Pornhub not canceled at this point? Because that's ridiculous, bro. That's
you know why? Only thing in life, if something's not canceled, look at how much money it brings in. If it brings in too much money, it's he, she, it, like, meaning entity. Like, if the entity brings in too much money, it ain't getting canceled. If the person brings in too much money, they're not getting canceled. I mean, that's why I guess I had such a, once again, this wasn't to like, bash porn and bash people who watch it, but it's just, if you are gonna watch, it's just like drinking alcohol. At least know what you're doing when you go drink, have a glass. Know that you could get pulled over and have a DUI. Know that you could, I could get into a fight with my friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you do watch the porn, do realize you could be driving a wedge between you and your girlfriend, your wife. I had a friend tell me that after he stopped watching porn, everything got better with his wife.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean? And it wasn't
true.
like they had a sex issue at all. They never had sex issues. For whatever reason, the porn was just affecting him. And he's not even sure in what way. He just knows that once he got rid of it, like they were just in a different zone. And like I think it's really, there's something to be said for how it affects men and our relationships and intimacy and romance and all that. You know,
Yeah,
it's hard to connect with somebody if you're connecting to yourself all the time.
Yeah,
you know
because
what I mean? Like,
let alone hard to connect with a human being if you call yourself a man of faith or God or whatever you want to call it. It's hard for you to connect with the man upstairs. How are you going to have a connection with a life partner that you call a wife, a husband, whatever, and you expect to have a connection with the God that shows you grace, the God that shows love, and the God that shows empathy and mercy and all this. And how are you going to nourish that relationship with the Lord when you're so consumed by porn? I was so consumed by porn that I didn't even have time to read the Word of God. I was so consumed by porn that I didn't have time to have decent conversations with women in my life.
Exactly.
I was so consumed by porn that I couldn't even function properly at work because I would take breaks, go to the bathroom, and watch a quick scene on my phone real quick. I was that guy, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I had girlfriends, and sometimes I would just, while they were sleeping, still be just watching.
Yeah.
It didn't even matter if I was getting aroused or not. I'm just sitting there, and the girl's laying there, and I'm watching. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, this is in the past, but still, this is like, I think back to all those times in high school. You know what I mean? Just going and just having to go release multiple times for no reason.
Yeah.
No reason other than the fact that I wanted to and I could.
Yeah.
You know, like having free access to drugs. That's why it's even more dangerous potentially. At least drugs, you gotta go find them.
And you
Alcohol,
have to
gotta
afford
go.
it.
You know what I mean? Gambling, you have to
Have money.
At food addiction. This you could literally. It's probably because if nobody's around, who's parenting? Who's patrolling? Nobody. You know what I mean? Like there's nobody to look. There's
Because
so
nobody's
it's really just up to you.
Nobody's holding you accountable. You're definitely not holding yourself accountable.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So it is a wormhole that you can dive into, rabbit hole you could dive into that can consume you for sure. And like studies have showed, as I said before, that it does affect the way you interact with the human being. It does affect how you grow spiritually and emotionally because you're constantly growing. The Mike that you were last year is not the Mike that you are this year. Exactly. There's always growth, and porn consumption and the abuse of porn literally stops that, delays that, sometimes even eradicates that. And so you don't want to be that person because studies show that it slows you down. You find yourself more tired. You find yourself more lazy. You're not as ambitious, and you can look this up. Again, I sound like a broken record, but look all this up. You find yourself less motivated. It said on the research I was doing, it said less motivated to go to the gym. The passions that you've had, go play ball, go play racquetball, play tennis for you tennis players out there. Like you're less motivated to do that because you're more motivated to go to work, go home, watch porn for an hour, and then go to sleep. And that becomes a routine, and that becomes a problem, essentially. So how do you combat those problems? And people are going to say like, oh, well, it's just so hard because, when you're on Instagram, you're scrolling through the Explore page, you get these girls in these fitness pages with yoga pants and they're shaking their booties and it's hard, bro. I get it. I was that guy too. Yeah. You have to sometimes, and I'm going to say how I want to say it. You got to grow up and you have to learn to say no to those compulsions. You know what I'm saying? You got to realize that porn consumption and the abuse of it is not something that you want to be a part of anymore. You don't want to find yourself in a dark room with a clean Xbox and playing music in the background and doing what you're doing and expect to have a healthy social life. It just doesn't work. Show me a man that will go out of his way and say, man, porn really made me such a expressive person, and I excelled in my marriage the minute I started, watching porn. You know what I'm saying? You're never gonna hear that guy. 100%. That guy doesn't exist.
And some people will probably clown me for it, but even the other night I got upset because I was with Candace and we were looking at my phone. There was something funny, and I scrolled up, and the page was weed humor, right? So I followed this page, weed humor, and it was a picture of this girl bent over, right, with a thong on, and was like, would you rather smoke this or be with me or something like that? So I was kind of annoyed because, like, here I am spending time with, we're not perfect. I'm not saying, oh, I don't glance or whatever. I'm not saying that, but I was spending time with my girl where I wasn't even actively trying to look at something, and here it is where it's being thrown in your face. Yeah. It's one thing if you're consciously trying to do something, okay, cool. But when it's being thrown in your face at times, like,
it's becoming more frequent, bro. Like, especially in the Instagram world, I would literally have to reset my algorithm, and by resetting it, I mean I would have to clear my history and then start from scratch again. And you guys could do that. There's ways on Instagram, on settings. You go to settings, you go to your history, and then you can clear your history. And clearing your history is like clearing the cookies on your laptop, computer, PC, whatever. It's literally
everyone who watches must know about the cookies.
Yeah, bro.
The cookies will destroy your life.
Yeah. That's a whole fact. You know what I'm saying? But like on some real stuff, like, as I said, grow the F up, man. Grow up. It's not good for you. That it's affecting your relationships around you. And if you happen to be in a serious relationship with your girlfriend, boyfriend, your wife, or your husband, cut it out, like Mike's friend did. Mike's friend cut it out, and his relationship, his marriage is thriving socially, intellectually. You have to, like, intellectually stimulate your partner too. It's not all about sex. Sex is great with your wife and with your wife and your husband. You're with your life partner. You're doing life with your partner. Sex is supposed to be an enhancement. It's supposed to enhance your relationship. But there's more to your relationship than sex. Sex, I believe, is the cherry on top with the whipped cream and everything. But you're supposed to intellectually stimulate your person, your person that you're learning. You're constantly supposed to be going out of your way to learn your person. Nipsey Hussle, God rest his soul, R.I.P. to Nip. Nipsey even said it. You got to learn your queen to know what she wants before 100%. She asks you.
100%.
So shout out to Nipsey and his camp. 100%. But Nipsey Hussle said it the best way. Nipsey Hussle said, you got to learn your queen to know what she wants before she asks for it.
Because that, I swear to you, and this is not me being arrogant, I know for a fact, just by the more I've gotten rid of porn, the better lover I became. Not because I'm even a better lover necessarily, right? Not because I'm doing anything different. The only thing is I'm way more present. Yeah. Because my brain isn't as distracted. I'm not worried about the thing. Because I'm telling you, it used to be things I saw, wanted to do. Now I'm so in the moment. I had her be like, what was that? And I was like, I don't know. But it's because I'm in tune and in touch with her, which seems like the cheat code, because if I'd known that for years, but no, just more so. But it just goes to show that, like, just being present, and I mentioned that because the irony is not worrying about myself actually improved the whole thing. Worrying about her and focusing on her and being present. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's not, and I think, and we share it because and it's not even about the lustfulness of it anymore. It's not about the lust.
It's more of a pure love now, that the pure, 100%. Genuine love and appreciation you have for your partner. And like being, and when I say that I'm a better lover, it's not necessarily a physical thing. Right. But being a better lover is like you said, and you hit it right on the head, bro, present. What girl does not like to have a boyfriend who is present most, or if not all the time? They love that.
Mm-hmm.
They love that when you're present there, because girls are more vulnerable. Girls are sensitive creatures. Females love the attention, love the attention of a man. They love the company of a man. They love to be safe. They love to be secure.
Mm-hmm.
And when you provide a security and that safety, and they know that they can be themselves around you, and you can have uncomfortable conversations because you know that you will grow from them.
Mm-hmm.
You can stimulate them.
100%.
You can stimulate them intellectually by having real, intimate, with substance conversations. And when I say intimate, it's not necessarily sexual, but it's just very deep conversations that you may have about life experiences, about where they came from the walk of life that they've gone through, certain experiences that they might have gone through that they feel comfortable sharing with you. All those things you obviously have to be present for. And when you are present, they're engaged with you more. And when you're engaged with each other, you get to learn things that you thought you may have not learned before. And so that's when your relationship starts thriving. That's when you start understanding how your partner operates, what makes them tick, what drives them, what motivates them, what puts them down, how they feel when they go through a certain thing. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? So, and porn's never gonna get you answers.
Because porn's about you.
Porn is a very
relationship is about them. You know, being a committed relationship is about them.
Yes.
But porn is only about you.
Yep.
Only about you.
Yeah, and even when early on, as I touched on it earlier, when I was getting into, because I obviously lost my virginity early on as well, just like you. And then when I started in my early 20s experimenting sexually with my partner at the time, I wanted to introduce pornography in our relationship because I thought, my ignorant self thought, that introducing the porn will enhance the relationship in that area.
Which doesn't sound like a terrible idea.
Until you start doing it. Because then she starts looking at you like, you watch that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, you're into those type of girls?
Right.
Oh, so what? Because then they start comparing.
And you're like, oh, I don't look like that.
I don't look like that.
Yeah.
And I am not that flexible.
How come I'm Caucasian and they're all Hispanic?
Yeah. Right? So then you start messing with their head. And then what you do is you literally create an insecure human being. And they start looking at you funny. And then they are not motivated to please you in that area.
Of course.
They're not motivated to go out on dates. They're not motivated to talk about certain things. And they start looking at you. They start looking at you funny. And so that is like the catalyst of disaster. It can definitely split a relationship up. I mean, I saw it happen. I experienced it. And for those that are struggling, man, there's so many different ways to kick the habit. One way for me is, when I said it earlier, is to kind of get deeper into the relationship that you ever got. I know that prior to me taking my faith serious, it was a struggle for me because I would go on spurts because it was off the strength of me, and you could only do so much. You know what I'm saying? Right. You as a human being can only do so much. So before I started taking my relationship with God to the next level, it was me and my problem. I never shared my problem with other believers of God. I never shared my problem with people that could possibly hold me accountable. I never shared it. It was always my problem. I'll take care of it. Yeah, that's more like behavior modification, but it's not a change heart. Once you change your heart, that's when the true change starts happening. And that's with anything, not just porn. That's with anything in your life. Facts. When you start, if you're a drug addict, behavioral modification is only going to get you too far until you relapse again. when you are struggling with anger management and managing your anger because you want to throw things across the wall and grab the person up against the wall and be verbal abusive and physical abusive, it's behavior modification is only going to get you so far until they catch you in a bad day and you start going back to your old ways. True transformation takes place when you have a changed heart, a changed perspective, and you start living your life out the way God intended it to be. And once you start being more intimate with the Lord, it becomes because the Bible says God will make a way. Mm-hmm. God will make a way to combat those temptations, whether it be porn, addictions of whatever sort, promiscuity, whatever you're struggling with, God will make a way. And you start understanding that more when you start reading the word, praying, meditating on the verses that you're reading. Because you can read the Bible from text from cover to cover, but are you practicing it? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? You can have all the knowledge that you want. The devil has all that knowledge. Mm-hmm. The devil knows the Bible like the back of his hand, but he's the devil. He's not God. Right. So what's going to separate you from you and the devil? What will separate you from you and the devil? Because the devil knows the word and you're trying to learn the word, but what separates you from the devil? That's the relationship with God, because he doesn't have one. So if you want to separate yourself from the enemy, you have to act accordingly and act, in a righteous way. Does that mean that you're going to be sinless for the rest of your life and there's a cheat code somewhere where you're never going to sin in that area? Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying, because I've been tempted. Mm-hmm. I've about a few months ago, I freaking landed on a link that popped of this third-party porn thing called something Google with like whatever, and I'm like, how the heck did I get here? And I got so scared, bro. But did I peek? Heck yeah, I peeked, and then it brought me back, bro. What? And I started kind of having like this like anxiety attack, like mini anxiety attack, and I'm like, yo, no, I can't do this. Like yeah, did I see nudity and did I see a half of a scene? Yes. But I was like, yo, I can't do this. But I was like, yo, I gotta get off this. Right. So I literally like fled in a sense, and I had to check like what the heck did I click on, and it was like this Instagram thing that when you click a link on the Instagram page and then they're selling a product, and I must have clicked on that. I don't know how it happened, but it happened so fast. But that's how sin happens. Sin happens pretty quickly, because you have these knee-jerk reactions to certain things. And here I was like, oh snap, like I cannot let this be a gateway to take me to that place again. And I already know what it feels like to be in that dark place with dealing with porn and just not feeling right. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like it's just not. It's like the addict chasing his first high. Of course. Yep, exactly. It's never going to be. Yeah, exactly. It really is. I would never, I wouldn't trade it for anything, man. Just like getting a grip on it a little bit, no pun intended. But just getting a grip on it and just realizing like, what did I really desire, right? Like that's it. Like I said, I'm not here to judge anybody, but it just wasn't for me. I wasn't finding the girl I wanted to be with, you know what I mean? Like you said, even I realized that lethargy, there was a time in my life where I didn't go to the gym really at all. And then when I kind of got rid of that, the gym is not really a big deal. Well, yeah, when you're not frivolously getting rid of testosterone in your life force multiple times, then you're going to have the energy to work out. And that's another thing, man. Like, not to get too much into it, but women are self-lubricating. It's a little different. But men need to be hydrated and like have sustenance in order to even produce semen. That is because we produce its literal life force. And they've linked sometimes frivolous, like overuse and frivolous, sometimes to male pattern baldness and other issues with the male body, lethargy, low testosterone, all from frivolous and over self-indulgence. So
That's another thing for guys to like kind of, keep in mind.
Yeah, keep in mind, guys, because it may not be present now you may not see the effects of it in real time, but once you start getting into your mid 30s, late 30s, early 40s, into your 50s, you're going to see the fruit of all that. And that's all dead fruit, man. That's all bad stuff that just jacks you up neurologically. It jacks you up in your member down there.
Yeah. So get a grip, guys.
So get a grip, guys. And I think we're going to end it with that, is get a grip. If you need prayer in that area of your life, and I'm not trying to josh anybody, like, I really do sincerely mean this. Put a comment on the video that you see on YouTube, or hit me up on the DM at kingdomtalks_pod. And if you really do need accountability, prayer over that in your life, because you're trying to kick it like I did at one point in my life where I was just tired of dealing with it. And if you're tired of dealing with pornography, don't let pornography dictate how you're going to live your life. Get a grip, like Mike said. Don't let it take you hostage. You have to take it hostage and just throw it in the deepest in the deepest portion of the sea, and let it sink down there and not have it be a problem in your life ever again. There is a way to get out of it. There is a way to break those chains. There is a way to break that bondage. That way is God for me. And so because it worked for me, I will always stand on that truth, that once you start making God a priority in any area of your life, he will make a way for you to liberate yourself from that bondage, because pornography is a bondage, just like addiction is, just like eating habits are, any kind of thing that hinders you from being one with the Lord is considered a bondage, is considered chains and shackles. You want to live a free life, because God created you to be that, to be a free person, to live in abundance and live for the kingdom. And while we're still here and we're waiting for heaven to collide with earth, we have to make the best out of this earthly experience that we're having in real time. So I encourage anybody that's listening and then struggling with porn addiction, male or female, if you're a female, I'll connect you with another female, because that's kind of weird talking to me being a guy talking to a girl about porn addiction. But I will definitely connect you with God-fearing women that will help you if you're a female and find yourself dealing with that as well. There's no shame in it. Mm-hmm. I think the minute you overcome that idea that I'm ashamed, I can't share this with you, I just got to deal with it on my own. No, there's no shame in it. You're not perfect. We're not perfect. We all need each other to help each other. Reach one, teach one. Remember that back in the day?
Yeah.
Back in the day, reach one, teach one. We just gotta share our experiences. There's such a powerful thing of the Me Too factor. Whenever you hear a story and then you tell your story and then that person says Me Too, mm-hmm. It's like, oh damn, I'm not alone.
Yeah, it's not so bad.
It's not so bad. I'm like, oh man, that person kind of went through something similar that I went through, because he said Me Too. So that Me Too factor is awesome, because it is going to liberate you and free you to put your walls down and have dialogue. Mm-hmm. And I think having dialogue in that respect, especially in that topic, because that topic is not really spoke too often on a platform within the confines of the church walls. I think it's definitely worth having a conversation, because you can live a better life, mm-hmm. and you can live a better quality life with your partner. Mm-hmm. So that being said,
listen, by all means, if you don't feel like you have any issue with it, then fine. But there are people who are listening that know, and they're hearing it, and they're like, and they feel it.
Yeah.
And if you feel that, then reach out to the proper channels and talk to somebody.
Talk to somebody. Talk to somebody. And if you're listening and you hear the sound of my voice and you're convicted and you don't have nobody to talk to, reach out to me. Like, I'm real serious, guys. Reach out to me. DM me. We could have a conversation and we could talk. We could further talk about the topic, and I'll be more than happy to do that for you. But man, that was great, bro. Thank you again.
Dog. I love you,
I
dog.
love you too, bro. Thank you. Thank you
Of course,
so.
Of course, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Yeah.
But that was great. That was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So before I go, boys and girls, just a quick reminder: if you're looking for merch, remember that I am ambassador for Seek Jesus Clothing Company. I'm gonna leave the links for you YouTubers out there. I'm gonna leave the link for that. Also for your boys, I left the link for your boys on the last episode that we did. So I'm gonna do the same again for Rebel
Noir
Clothing. I'm gonna leave a link on there as well. If you guys, for you gals, if you're looking for merch, Valentine's Day is coming.
Yep.
So if you want to buy your man or your partner some drip, check out Rebel Noir. Check out Seek Jesus Clothing Company. Use Kingdom Talks at checkout for that discount, and you can thank me later. But till the next time, we'll see you on the flip side. Have a great week, have a great month, and continue to push, continue to lean on God, continue to be the light. Use your story because that's the tool that God gave you to help others. So till the next time, we love you. Peace.